Welcome back to Respoiled. Today, I have another captivating story to share with you. But before we dive in, if you're new here, I invite you to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications, so you'll never miss out on all of my latest uploads. Now let's get started. While driving through the Southern California mountains, a young woman's car is struck by falling rocks, cracking the windshield. A complete rock slide occurs, hurling a significant amount of stone and dirt at the vehicle, forcing it off the road's edge. The car tumbles and spins down the hill, eventually getting stuck after falling off another edge. Fortunately, the girl survives, finding herself in a precarious situation as the car hangs on rocks. Ray and other Los Angeles Fire Department members fly in a helicopter, searching for the girl while being interviewed by a journalist about their job. When they spot the car, they call the girl's phone, urging her to remain calm, though she still screams when the car shakes slightly. Ray skillfully maneuvers the helicopter downward, tilting it to fit through the gap. A rescuer descends on a rope to secure the car, a task he must complete in under 5 minutes before the engine fails. When the rescuer approaches, the girl's attempt to reach out causes the car to shake once more. Though the car is soon secured, it slips, trapping the rescuer. The helicopter shakes, its engine failing, prompting Ray to descend. Amidst black smoke, Ray reaches the car, tears off the door, and rescues the girl. The pilot cuts the rope, causing the car to crash but freeing the rescuer, while Ray ensures the girl's safety. At the California Institute of Technology, Dr. Hayes lectures about the history of devastating earthquakes worldwide, including the lethal impact they have caused. He highlights the San Andreas Fault, where tectonic plates converge in California. He believes that this geological feature will inevitably trigger a significant earthquake at some point. Later, in his office, Dr. Park informs Dr. Hayes about minor tremors near the Hoover Dam, prompting them to investigate further. Upon returning home, Ray's daughter, Blake, contacts him, requesting items she left at his house for her college move. Abruptly, he halts the conversation upon receiving the divorce papers in the mail, leaving him deeply troubled. Ray then heads to Blake's room to collect her belongings, stumbling upon family photos, including those of Blake's deceased sister. At the Hoover Dam in Nevada, Park and Hayes monitor seismic activity with a new device. They are alarmed when the pulse rate sharply increases just before an earthquake strikes the area. Hayes races to warn people to flee while Park, trapped inside, struggles to ascend the stairs as the dam begins to collapse, triggering rock slides. People flee in panic as the structure fractures, releasing water and exacerbating the damage. Park rushes and escapes, but spots a girl with an injured leg. He pauses to assist her, then sprints with all his might as the ground crumbles just behind him. Park stumbles and pushes the girl towards Hayes before he falls, realizing his foot is impaled by a metal rod, trapping him. Despite Hayes' willingness to assist, Park instructs him to stay with the girl. As the dam collapses, a massive surge of water overtakes Park, resulting in his demise. Meanwhile, Ray receives a message from his boss informing him about the earthquake and requesting his presence. Ray pauses to deliver his daughter's belongings and encounters his ex-wife Emma and her boyfriend Daniel. Emma reveals her plans to move in with Daniel, leaving Ray distressed, and he hastily departs for work, feeling uneasy about the situation. Several hours later, Blake accompanies Daniel to his workplace. While waiting in the lobby, she strikes up a friendship with Ben and his younger brother Ollie. Meanwhile, Hayes is interviewed by the same reporter who spoke with Ray. He elaborates that before Park's demise, they validated the earthquake prediction capabilities of their new device. Hayes and his students are suddenly interrupted by news concerning activity along the San Andreas Fault. Hayes performs calculations and maps out the fault and dam boundaries, deducing that the entire San Andreas Fault will soon rupture. At downtown Los Angeles, Emma lunches with Daniel's sister, who asks insensitive questions about Emma's deceased daughter. Emma receives a call from Ray, apologizing for his behavior. Suddenly, the restaurant tables wobble, and the building shakes from an earthquake. Ray peers through the chopper's window and sees the highway crumbling due to an earthquake. He instructs Emma to go to the roof for pickup in a few minutes. In Hayes' office, they hurry to take cover under tables as their device indicates the quake is 100 times stronger. The entire San Andreas Fault is active and moving toward San Francisco. Meanwhile, Blake, accompanied by Daniel, enters the car to depart when they are hit by the earthquake. Urging the driver to flee, Daniel's car speeds away as the parking lot crumbles and others scatter in panic. The ground splits, causing the car to plunge downward, colliding with a wall and becoming ensnared by debris. A beam forces the car roof down, fatally injuring the driver and trapping Blake's legs beneath the bent seat. Despite Daniel's efforts, he is unable to free her, so he decides to search for assistance. Daniel locates a security guard on the first floor and seeks assistance, but the guard is struck by the collapsing ceiling. Fearing for his safety, Daniel joins the others in evacuating the building, but Ben and Ollie, having overheard his conversation with the guard, opt to search for Blake. Meanwhile, Ray observes the Hollywood sign toppling as he flies toward Los Angeles. Fire and smoke emerge from different locations across the city, and skyscrapers begin to collapse. Inside the restaurant, panic ensues as Emma attempts to open a door, revealing a hole where a man falls to his demise. Suddenly, the restaurant's oven explodes, engulfing the chef in flames as Emma urges everyone to head for the roof. She locates the exit stairs and hurries upward, but others attempt to flee by descending. Reaching the roof, Emma witnesses the floor beginning to collapse beneath her, causing her to plunge through debris until she lands on a lower level, battered and disoriented. Determined, she begins ascending the rubble until Ray eventually discovers her at the summit. As he attempts to approach, an explosion ignites a fire on the roof, prompting Emma to retreat. Ray maneuvers the helicopter closer, lowering a rope with a rescue basket. Dodging obstacles, Emma leaps at the last moment, grasping onto the basket just as another building collapses, causing a chain reaction. Ray swiftly hoists her up and resumes his position in the pilot seat, where he wrestles with the controls as the helicopter spirals due to another collapsing skyscraper. Despite extensive spinning and the loss of a door, Ray manages to stabilize the helicopter and maneuvers it away before the buildings collapse on them. In San Francisco, Blake contacts Ray for assistance, but the signal fades quickly. Meanwhile, Ray reassures Emma about their rescue plans while additional debris lands on the car. Just then, Ben and Ollie locate Blake and attempt to use a metal beam to free her, resulting in more rubble cascading down. Ben searches the trunk and discovers a tire jack, which he employs to elevate the fallen beam, but it only lifts halfway. Ben acts swiftly by puncturing the car's tires to create additional space, allowing him to extract Blake just before the beam collapses the vehicle. Meanwhile, in Hayes' office, the team scrutinizes the data from the monitoring systems and determines the crisis isn't resolved. Seeking assistance, Hayes implores the reporter to aid in alerting the public, prompting them to rush to the media center and collaborate with other students to infiltrate news broadcasts. The reporter introduces Hayes, who alerts the entire nation about impending earthquakes. He forecasts a seismic event measuring 9.5 or possibly higher, warning that although centered in California, its effects will be felt even on the East Coast. Urging San Francisco residents to evacuate promptly, Hayes stresses the urgency. Meanwhile, Blake's group exits the crumbling building to find chaos outside, with people fleeing in all directions. After a lengthy run, the tremors subside, prompting the group to search for an electronics store. Ray had taught Blake to find an old model phone for use when electricity fails. Upon acquiring one, Blake contacts Ray, revealing Daniel's abandonment, which infuriates Emma. Ray advises Blake to reach higher ground at Coit Tower, assuring her he'll rendezvous there. Once the call concludes, Ben contacts his own parents, while Emma attempts to reach Daniel, only to encounter his voicemail, where she leaves a stern message for his actions. Meanwhile, on the streets, Daniel walks alongside other survivors when the aftershocks cause another building to collapse suddenly. The crowd scatters in panic as Daniel shoves people aside, leading to a man being swept away by a cloud of dust. As the helicopter nears the devastated Bakersfield, one of its engines unexpectedly explodes. Realizing they're going to crash, Ray initiates daring maneuvers, repeatedly descending and ascending in an attempt to safely land the helicopter. Regrettably, the helicopter's propeller strikes a lamppost, causing it to crash into a storefront. Luckily, Ray and Emma emerge unharmed, observing the chaos as people exploit the crisis to loot the mall and engage in violent confrontations. They quietly navigate the parking lot until they spot a truck with its door unlocked. Ray starts hotwiring it, but suddenly a thief brandishes a gun and threatens him. Ray swiftly disarms and punches the thief before driving off with Emma in the truck. Shortly after, on the highway, they encounter an elderly couple whose car has broken down, signaling for them to stop. Ray continues driving, but he abruptly stops when Emma spots a massive gap in the road caused by the San Andreas fault. They return to the elderly couple, and Ray notices the man's aviation hat. Grateful, the couple leads them to a nearby airport hangar. In appreciation, Ray and Emma offer the truck to the elderly couple and board a plane themselves. Before departing, Ray confesses that he distanced himself emotionally because he struggled to cope with their daughter's death. He holds himself responsible since the rafting trip was his suggestion. Ray apologizes for the impact on their marriage. Emma reassures him that nobody could have prevented their daughter's fate, urging him not to blame himself. In San Francisco, Blake's group walks among the crowd, following the guard's directions to evacuate. Suddenly, Blake spots an abandoned fire truck and retrieves an armored box containing emergency supplies, including a radio and food rations. Ben observes that Coit Tower is encircled by flames and smoke. Ollie checks his tourist book, finding that Nob Hill is the next highest point. The trio decides to head there, despite it being opposite the evacuation route. Shortly after, the plane reaches San Francisco, but the airport is ablaze. Ray activates the plane's autopilot and declares they must parachute out. Emma, hesitant, is strapped to Ray's parachute, and they jump together, falling for several minutes before landing safely in the middle of a baseball diamond. At that moment, another earthquake hits the area. Hayes and his team hide under the tables again, observing the building shaking harder this time. In San Francisco's streets, the trio tumbles as the earthquake topples power lines and buildings. They attempt to flee, but Ben trips, and a piece of glass pierces his thigh. Ollie breaks down while Blake consoles him. Meanwhile, the city crumbles further, with buildings and the bridge collapsing, and the sea begins to churn. Ray and Emma exit the hangar, and Ray immediately directs people to seek shelter behind the stadium, away from the crumbling buildings. Spotting an injured woman unable to walk, Ray lifts her and brings her to safety at the stadium, where everyone gathers against the wall just before the collapsing structures can reach them. Once everyone is accounted for, Ray and Emma assess the extensive destruction and conclude that walking or driving isn't feasible. They'll need to find a boat. After the earthquake subsides, Blake removes the shard from Ben's thigh and dresses the wound. Hayes examines his computer data, confirming it is the most significant earthquake ever documented. Shortly after, Ray and Emma notice the tower ablaze, prompting Ray's belief that Blake sought refuge elsewhere. Suddenly, he observes the water level shifting rapidly, signaling an imminent tsunami. Blake receives a radio alert and citywide sirens blare, indicating they won't reach Nob Hill before the disaster strikes. Blake spots the nearby building Daniel had been constructing and decides they should seek shelter there. Meanwhile, along the coast, numerous boats attempt to escape but are hindered by a colossal wave. Despite some vessels ascending and plummeting, Ray manages to maintain sufficient control to reach the summit. They encounter a container ship that nearly causes harm, but Ray maneuvers away just in time, resulting in only their roof being taken by the ship. With containers falling around them, Ray swiftly navigates to evade them all as the ship overturns onto the Golden Gate Bridge. Many survivors, including Daniel and the elderly couple, perish in the chaos. The tsunami subsequently demolishes the remaining sections of the bridge, inundating San Francisco and devastating what the earthquake left untouched. Meanwhile, Blake's group ascends hurriedly, pausing at the highest accessible floor due to blocked stairs. Unfortunately, the floor isn't elevated sufficiently, and they observe the tsunami approaching. Consequently, they sprint to take cover behind the pillars. As the water breaches the window and inundates the structure, it begins to collapse but is obstructed by another skyscraper. The inclination results in some water seepage, prompting the trio to cling to the furniture to avoid being swept away. Ray and Emma soon arrive at the boat area, observing the widespread devastation. Aware that Blake learned from Ray's advice, they proceed towards the tall buildings in search of her. Meanwhile, Blake and the brothers observe that the stairs have been cleared, prompting them to ascend to a higher floor. As Blake tends to Ben's leg, he pays her a heartfelt compliment, and they share a kiss. Suddenly, Ollie spots the boat moving away. Desperate, Blake and Ollie pound on the window, trying to grab Emma and Ray's attention. When conventional efforts fail, Blake recalls Ollie has a laser pointer. She directs it toward the boat's control panel, catching the adult's attention at last. Another wave crashes through, shattering windows and flooding yet another floor. Ben and Ollie swim toward the stairs to safety. Regrettably, Blake is ensnared by the water and unable to reach the brothers due to a glass door. As the building sinks and water levels surge, Ray entrusts the boat to Emma, shares a kiss, and plunges into the water to swim toward the building. Upon entering, Ray spots Emma on the opposite side of the glass door and instructs her to wait while he attempts to clear the debris. Meanwhile, on the upper floor, Ben advises Ollie to remain safe while he returns for Blake. Suddenly, the building trembles anew, and water inundated their vicinity. Blake's remaining air is consumed by the water, and she swiftly loses consciousness. Ray, desperate, exerts one last push to clear the debris and reaches his daughter, pulling her along as they ascend to reunite with the brothers. As the building submerges, Blake attempts CPR on Blake while Ben struggles to break the windows, his efforts proving futile due to insufficient strength. Outside, Emma witnesses the scene and steers the boat swiftly, crashing through the building's exterior. The group boards the boat promptly, steering clear just in time as the buildings crumble in their wake. Ray persists in attempting to revive Blake, eventually relenting. Emma's tears spur him to continue, determined not to lose another daughter. Unexpectedly, Blake regains consciousness, feeling dizzy but alive, prompting a collective sigh of relief as everyone embraces. Later, the National Guard and UN relief teams reach the area to assist the survivors. On a fence, signs, letters, and pictures serve as a final farewell to those lost. Ray and his family observe the remnants of the city, and he declares it's time to commence rebuilding. Don't forget to like, subscribe and enable notifications for more content like this. Thank you for watching.